Welcome back to the channel, and today we're looking at the brand new Sencut ArcBlast. I really wish this would have came out a little bit earlier. I hate when knives come out right at the end of the year because they kind of get left out of some of the top 10 videos like mine. If you hadn't checked out that video, my top 10 best pocket knives under the $50 price point, go check that one out after you check out this video at least. This would have definitely made it on the list. The ArcBlast seems like Sencut's answer to Civivi's Cubit. You know, it's a very popular model for Civivi for good reason. They're pretty similar in overall size, but there definitely are some differences, especially in price tag. And we're going to see if the ArcBlast is right for you. This is a medium-sized EDC knife at 7.07 inches long, so, you know, not too big, especially with that flipper tab. If you have large, extra large hands, this was probably going to be a little too small for you. You have a 2.98 inch drop point blade of non-CR 18 MOV stainless steel, which I have tested a lot of Sencut's non-CR, and it does really well for its price point. You have a very fine needle-like precision point there, excellent for doing detailed drag cuts, or if you need to trace something out, you can easily get that tip down on the things, or it would also work great for a piercing task. You have a very well executed sharpening choil that is going to give you tons of sharpening light before it starts to widen up back here. I sharpened it up after I tested this one just to see, and as you can see, I still have a ton of light. Where my fingernail is right there is how much you can sharpen before it'll start to widen up. That's where the plunge line comes down. You have a nice top swedge for some added flare up here, and this type of drop point is my favorite. It's got a low tip sitting underneath the center line of that pivot, meaning that the belly is going to be very gradual up to that tip, so you're not going to easily slide out of cuts if you're, you know, twisting into something, and it's a lot easier to get that tip down into something to drag through it. There is no jimping up top, but I did not find any need for it whenever I was doing my testing. Unlike the Civivi Cubit, which has a full flat ground blade, this particular one has a saber hollow ground blade that comes down to around 18 thousandths at the thinnest portion behind the edge. Now let's see how it performs. The knife came with a wicked sharp edge out of box from Sencut, and boy oh boy is this hollow grind slicing very well, especially with that low tip. It's going to be easy to stay into the cut. I'm trying to do these longer cuts just so you can see that. And yeah, only thing I do know is that they usually have their knives sharpened at like 22-23 degrees per side. God, I wish they would bring that down some more, because this knife, I'm going to definitely reprofile it after I finish doing the testing, and I promise you it would perform 3 times as good as it is right now. But testing the ergos on this piece of wood right now, doing some light stuff just to check that edge. Now increasing the pressure more and more, and man, this handle is very comfortable, and I'm able to get a lot of force into the wood. The clip stayed out of the way of my palm, and your mileage may vary depending on the size of your hands, but yeah, very nice. Easy to get that tip down, do drag cuts. Now, it's not the knife struggling here. I was just trying to see how light of pressure I could go to get through this leather right here. And it's got some dried pieces toward the back end of that. But on a flat cutting surface, it's going to blast through the material. I mean, it's going to do it very easily in this pinch grip. None of the materials really gave it any issues whatsoever. That's one thing I love about a good hollow grind, is that, you know, unless it's something very dense like some triple wall cardboard or something, it should pass through it very effortless, because you're just relying on that apex really. So keeping a nice sharp edge on it will help. Now this is where I was like, ooh, nice. The edge has a ton of bite going through this 1/2 inch sisal rope. And I love this blade shape for doing this testing, this portion of the testing, because it's so easy. I can either push straight through it, or I can do a little sawing motion cut if I want. And as you can see, it's doing push cuts, and I'm going very fast. Even though it's sped up, I'm going pretty darn fast. The edge is holding on pretty nicely. Like I said, it has a good bit of bite. Now, I will say, you know, after you sharpen it up 1 or 2 or 3 times, the edge retention is gonna jump up dramatically each time. At least that's my experience with Sencut, Civivi, all their knives. Well, not so much sometimes are, you know, good out of box. But This one's good. Like I said, it's just not going to be the best performance you're going to be able to get out of it, because they usually sharpen these knives on a belt and then do a power strop, and that could fatigue the very apex of the edge, causing it not to last as long as it would normally. But this one, I thought it did really well. We get through 80 cuts, and I think that's very respectable. Of course, we'll test that edge after all this cutting, and if it's even got any edge left to it, I'll be very, very satisfied, and I had a blast testing this knife. Let's check that edge out. It still feels really good. Yeah. Minor hang up there in the front. I mean, it's still sharp. It's just not as clean as it was whenever I started. I would call that outstanding. Now let's take a look at the deployment and action of this knife. It is a button lock. It's riding on ceramic ball bearings. It's got a minimal flipper tab with some nice jimping on it that grabs the finger nicely, but it's not uncomfortable. And you have thumb studs. This thing rockets out, and it makes a ting as well. Love that sound. Once you depress that button, it's a complete fall shut knife. Thumb studs work great. Now, whenever I do the reverse flick, I can do it the normal way by putting my finger behind it like that, but as you can see, the way this comes out right here, it's a lot easier if you just kind of push it out that way. That way you're not overcoming this portion right here. They definitely dialed in the detent to perfection, at least on my particular sample. I mean, this thing comes out nice and fast, and it has that nice ting. Yeah, I would even say the detent on this particular button lock is dialed in better than both of my Civivi cubits. Now let's take a look at the handle area. This is another exciting thing for the price tag on this. This thing comes in at $46.75. And if this interests you by the end of this, I will have links down in the description. If you feel like helping support what I do here on the channel, using those affiliate links help support the channel for my testing materials and stuff like that. But no sweat if not. You have aluminum scales that have a black coating on it. You can also get them in two different non-coated versions and a red aluminum with a black coated blade as well. You have flat aluminum scales with a nice chamfer, nice softening around there. They were nice and comfortable, no hot spots that I noticed throughout any of my testing. You do have a lanyard hole for the lanyard people out there. Flow through construction so you can blow it out with some compressed air if you'd like. Excellent blade to handle ratio, almost 1-to-1, and you don't have to worry about coming in contact in the closed position. You have a tip up deep carry left or right-handed pocket clip. I do wish it was inset into the frame, but at $46.35, I'm okay with it. It functions excellently, and it did not bother me during any of my testing. You have Torx T8 throughout, except for the pocket clip, which is T6. I'm okay with that. You don't have to take the pocket clip off. Like I said earlier, this is a button lock. It has a recessed area so you don't accidentally depress that button, and you have to press it below that to get it to release. As you can see there, we'll do some light spine wax just to test that out. Yeah, they definitely did a good job. You have good engagement. You can see how far it comes down, and they have gotten the geometry correct. Your weight is at 2.977 ounces, which is outstanding. And they're able to get that weight down because there's no liners with the aluminum scales. Love seeing that. Some quick size comparisons. We have the Civivi Cubit and the Civivi Elementum. As you can see, the Cubit is a hair longer, but you have a little bit more cutting edge than the Cubit because of the choil. And it's a little bit bigger than the Elementum. Next, we have the Ontario Rat 2 and the QSP Penguin. Both of these are good size references. Last, we have the Spyderco Power 3 and the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Now for my nitpicks and complaints, I only really have two, and they're very nitpicky. The edge bevel on my particular knife was at 22 degrees per side. I would love to see them at least come down to 20 degrees per side. 18 would be even better. But even with the bevel that came on it, it still performed very, very well with this nice thin hollow grind. And also, I would love to see this clip inset into the frame, and I would love to see T8. However, at $46.75, I think you're getting an outstanding knife, especially if you don't have large, extra large hands. I think this one should fit your hands nicely. I have a 4-finger grip of my medium-sized hands. That's the only big difference between this and the Cubit, besides the steel and the flat grind, is that this one has a flipper and thumb studs. This one does not have a flipper, allowing you to get a lot more handle room. This one is going to keep you behind that choil area. So it just depends on how big you like your knives and, you know, the size of your hands, obviously. But do I recommend it? 1,000 times yes. I think this is one of my favorite Sencut knives so far. You know, I think it's rivaling the Sencut Serene. Now that one's in D2. It's gonna hold an edge a little bit longer, and it's a little bit bigger of a blade. But this one has that blade shape that I love. It would have definitely been on my top 10 best knives of 2023 under $50. And I'm glad I was able to get it early enough to where I could do my normal testing and carry it long enough so I could show it to y'all before the end of the year, just so it doesn't get left by the wayside. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace. Go check out that video. Top 10 best knives under $50.